So I recently came across a short video clip of an interview with the writer James Baldwin. In it, a white British journalist turned to Baldwin, the acclaimed novelist and playwright, and asked him the following question. He said, "When you were starting out, you were a young, black, impoverished homosexual. You must have said to yourself, how disadvantaged can I be?" Baldwin, smiling throughout the question, immediately responded, "No, I thought I'd hit the jackpot." The crowd laughed, the interviewer laughed, and Baldwin laughed. Then he continued, "It was so outrageous, you could not go any further. So you had to find a way to use it." I'm here today to talk about that question being asked and that question being answered. I'm here to talk about expectations and assumptions, about how we see ourselves and how we see others. I'm here to talk about an idea that I'll later explain is choosing opportunity over insult, a concept that actually changed the way that I think about myself. And I'm here to talk about connection, about how we can spin and create stories that lead to stronger connections. So I'm a storyteller by trade, but I actually believe this, and I'm going to explain my idea through my work in my life, but I actually believe this across the board, across industry and individual, that when you choose opportunity over insult, you're better equipped to connect and to thrive. So before I dive into my idea more specifically, I want to talk a little bit about connection. In his book, Social, the scientist Matthew Lieberman makes the strongest case for the value of connection that I've ever read. Lieberman believes that our need for social connection is as fundamental as our need for food or for fire or for water. He claims that when we feel social pain or a lack of connection, it's actually as real as feeling physical pain. In his research, he says, "We are profoundly shaped by our social environment. The things that cause us to feel pain are things that are evolutionarily recognized as threats to our survival, and the existence of social pain is a sign that evolution has treated social connection like a necessity, not a luxury." So let's embrace social connection for what it is, a life source. So I became a visual storyteller out of necessity. I grew up in a really privileged place with an excess of success all around me. This is the view from my bedroom growing up. I obviously wanted for nothing. I had then, and I still have, the most wonderfully loving and supportive parents and family. It's actually kind of outrageous how supportive they are. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. They're literally right there if you want to talk to them later. But still, I struggled. I struggled because I'm gay. And I felt inherently different than those around me. And by being different, I felt like I was off track. I felt like my difference was a problem, and I felt that I had a harder time fitting in than those, or I had a harder time than those that could fit in. Excuse me, sorry. So to remedy this pain, I turned to movies and TV shows and visual stories of any kind. I desperately wanted to see my difference on TV. And so I literally watched everything. And let me tell you, there's like an incredible amount of terrible gay content out there. But I watched it all. I persevered. And I watched it grasping at moments and sentences that made me feel like a part of something connected. Characters became my community, and I felt a little less alone. And when I realized that I could connect with these characters and I could escape into these stories, I committed to making that my work. Escaping into other people's stories made my story, one that I was so down on, a little bit more bearable. So, and I also recognized at the same time that a potential solve for, the culture sort of not feeling good about my lifestyle was in seeing more of that lifestyle in creative and entertaining ways on screen. So it felt like the only way that I could personally affect change. So I committed. I pledged to making my story and stories like mine more visible so I could feel less alone and others could feel less alone. After college, I moved to LA to work in TV. I wanted to be a part of making those stories that matter, that change lives. I wanted to do good. I wanted to actually change the world. And so naturally, I started by working on the TV show Bridezillas. So this is actually a screenshot of one of our brides, and it's also a screenshot of my face going into work every day, which was rough. But I actually learned a couple things while working on this show, despite what it stands for. I learned that you can tell a story out of literally anything. I learned that everyone has a good story to tell if you're creative enough in how you tell it. And I learned that you have the power to shape how you approach any story you create. So I kept working on TV shows in LA, interviewing lots of really great people, putting real people's stories on screen, granting them the opportunity to be heard and to be seen. And then I moved to New York, and I produced digital content for the web for audiences all around the world. I made hundreds of videos. And while I was working, I still was entirely too hard on myself. I still felt less than and unworthy, and I still found it really hard to connect. The assumption for me was always going to be insult. But that changed. That changed when I heard an interview with the writer Gia Tolentino. The interview was on a popular podcast called Longform, where writers talk about their style and their process. The host of the podcast asked Tolentino if she feels like she has any special desire to weigh in on her identity, if she feels like her identity shapes her writing. And for context, Tolentino is of Filipino descent. Here's her response. When you get asked to write about identity things, like being a woman or being a non-white person, you get asked to write about the insult, not about the opportunity. And I fundamentally balk at that. I'd much rather experience my identity as an opportunity. People expect you to have trials, and I just resist that. I love this rendering because it does two really important things. It shapes the way we see identity as either an opportunity or an insult. There's choice in the matter. I also like that Tolentino rejects the question. She says, no, I'm not going to answer this question, this loaded question about my identity. And instead, I'm going to claim full ownership, positive ownership over myself, my identity, and my experience. She claimed positive ownership over her story. Thanks to Tolentino, I feel galvanized to resist the notion that my identity is an insult. Not only am I far more interesting and complex because I'm gay, but I'm actually, like when I own my story and when I choose opportunity, I'm actually able to connect with more people than I ever thought possible. So recently I applied this to my work. I made a movie in 2018. And while the premise was entirely imagined, the characters and the emotions were pulled from my core. I led with opportunity. And the final result I'm really proud of. It's a great movie. It played around the world in a bunch of festivals. It won some awards, and it was positively reviewed. But most importantly, I was able to connect with a bunch of different people. I was able to connect. So let's go back to Baldwin. When that earnest British reporter asked him, how disadvantaged can you get? What if he had stopped at, no, I'd hit the jackpot, and meant it? What if he didn't laugh it off? What if there was no sarcasm, no self-deprecation, no insult? What if he led with opportunity? Could he have created even more amazing work? The legendary filmmaker Agnes Varda believes that filmmaking takes three parts. It's inspiration, creation, and sharing. Inspiration is why you make a film. Creation is how you make it. And sharing is what you do with it. We don't make movies to watch them alone. We make them to share with other people. Sorry. So I use storytelling to connect with people, obviously. And I use it to fulfill my purpose here, my need. And I'm doing my best. I'm doing my part to push away the insult and instead try to push up opportunity. When we allow ourselves to be run by insult, not opportunity, we stray from the path to connection. And connection is the most important thing we have. Thanks.